Okay, so welcome, Sally, again. So we were just having a chat about food and how you let go of attachment to food and fasting as a way of doing that. And really, I just said if you can just not be too bothered about it. The whole point is non-attachment. I think if you attach to not eating, then that's another problem. Or I don't eat, or I'm a breatharian and I never eat. I think either way, you're making the body real and you're making food real. So there's an attachment. But if you simply like, well, I eat when it feels appropriate, and if I don't eat, that's also okay, and I can learn to flow with it. And it's taken me, some many years to sort of get to a point where I feel like, yeah, it's not really an issue one way or another. It's like I eat, I don't eat, um, and so you might want to start with some structured. Okay, well, I'll just do a day. I'll do a day of fasting. I'll do 24 hours and just try that. That's how I start. 24 hours, see how it goes. Yeah, okay, not too big a deal, but hungry. But once you've done it, you kind of go, well, actually, it's really no big deal. And then I started to play with doing longer fasts, and so I did, some structured. I did like a 7 day, and then a 9 day, and then a 10 day, and then I sort of thought after the 10 day one, I was like, okay, I kind of got that. I learned a lesson. I didn't really, I certainly wasn't craving food towards the end. I was like, I'm okay actually. I could go on for probably many more days. But I was losing weight and I was losing muscle, no doubt. Um, and then someone I think invited me to dinner. I was um, I was at a place called Ponta Dura, which is on the coast of Mozambique, and so I'd met a lady there, and she said, "Well, come over for dinner." And I was like, "Well, that kind of feels right. So, all right, it's time to break the fast." And I just sort of went with it because to do otherwise would then be not in flow. So it's all about the flow, like what works, and if you can find a way to reduce your attachment and still have it be in flow, then that's the ideal. So just play with it. So you skipped a meal, so that's a start. You skipped a meal yesterday. Okay, so you skipped a meal. So it's no big deal. Some stuff came up. There was some reaction from the ego. You observe that. So try doing it again. So every now and then, okay, I'll skip a meal. Try doing a 24-hour fast and just see how that goes. And then the whole point is observe what the ego does. That's the interesting thing. If you can just observe the ego arising and not react at all, and just use it as a spiritual practice, then that's really what it's for. It's another transformational practice.
Yeah, the insight was that my ego wanted me to eat because if I forgot to eat, it would remind me I'm not a body.
Yeah, yeah. The idea of fasting is that it's associated with spiritual practices because you're saying you're not a body, and it's letting go of an attachment to this world. Eating is one of the primary things we do in a body to sustain the body. So that's why, as a spiritual practice, it seems to be helpful in many traditions that you fast and then you have a sense of a detachment from the body and the ritual. So it becomes a ritual. People say, "Oh, you have to eat every few hours, otherwise your blood sugar goes haywire." Well, that's just not true because I know I've done it. It might take a little bit of readjustment if you're used to doing that, but I can go for days and my blood sugar is fine because you can tap into fat reserves. I think you burn fat, so you can switch your body to fat burning. Then you've got all the energy you need. Just burn up the fat. But you got to switch that mechanism on, and the way to do that is to reduce your carbohydrate intake number one, and then fasting. If you fast, it teaches your body to go, okay, well, got to go find some energy somewhere, so let's start burning fat. But if you keep pumping the carbohydrates in, then it's like, well, okay, there's always this really easy, quick um, source of energy, so it just gets used to that. So you kind of have to, like all training, you have to stress the body to get a change. If you want to do any kind of physical training, you have to stress the body beyond its comfort zone. You have to create some temporary damage for it to then repair. Building muscle. This is the theory. So it's kind of the same. You have to go outside of the comfort zone and change something, and then the ego, which likes the status quo, isn't going to like that. But that's why it's a spiritual practice, because the ego comes up, and then you've got to journey through that and let it go. And the whole practice is designed to help you to let go of another layer of ego. Now, I was very grateful that I did fasting as a spiritual practice, because it did free me. I was also, I was quite attached to food, 3 meals a day. My family's like 3 meals a day. That's it. And you kind of have this mindset, and you realize it's a program that's running you. If I don't, I have to eat every few hours, 3 meals a day. And it's like, well, why? Who says that? And so you go and you explore for yourself, and you go, well, is that actually true? Let me test it. This is the only way you're going to know. Test it for yourself and see. And like much everyone else, you'll see, no, well, I don't actually have to eat 3 meals a day. I could, I could skip meals and I'm okay. And if I fast for 24 hours, it's not the end of the world. I'm not, going to die or anything. It's just a sensation in the body. I feel a bit hungry. Okay. Well, and then even then we define it as hungry. We put a label on it. But if it's just a sensation and you observe, okay, so there's a little rumbling in the stomach, I feel a bit lighter, maybe there's some lightheadedness going on, but okay, I'm just observing the sensation. I'm not interpreting, I'm not making it into a problem. And then it's not really a problem. You observe the sensation and there's no resistance to the sensations. It's like, okay, that's what's arising. That's all that's arising, and it's just a sensation. It's not really me. It's temporary, and you don't judge it. So that alone is good spiritual practice. Just observing the body. That's the essence of the Vipassana technique. Observe the body, and don't judge it. Just observe the sensation. So if you stimulate, you're fasting, and then there's sensations going on in the body because of that. That's going to take the practice. It's going to be helpful for that practice. Okay, now you've got more stuff going on that you'd normally react to, and now you're not. And so this is why it goes kind of hand in glove with the awareness.
Yeah.
So play with. Maybe try intermittent fasting. Eat for 8 hours, fast for 12 or 16.
Yeah, I do that. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah.
You do that already.
Just want the freedom. Just want the freedom, from the attachment of it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
Play with it. Yeah. Okay, anything else to share?
No, that's all.
Okay, so let's have a look, see at today's lesson. This quote. Okay, if you can read the quote.
The only way that we can live is if we grow. The only way that we can grow is if we change. The only way that we can change is if we learn. The only way we can learn is if we are exposed. The only way that we can become exposed if we throw ourselves out into the open. Do it. Throw yourself. C. Joy Bell C. It's a funny name, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a pen name. But C. Joy Bell C. It's quite memorable, so maybe that's why she. So you can go, what's that about there? C. Joy Bell C. Maybe it's phonetic, like C. Joy Bell C. Anyway. So what she's saying there is we kind of just discussed it actually. Just give it a go. Throw yourself into this open
To me, it translates
Expand.
as the ego's journey, the hero's journey, to like go for
Mm.
it. Just go for
Yeah.
it, regardless of what's life's going to come up. It will, and just go through it. And
Mm.
I did some EAM clearing on it about just letting go, surrendering, and all that. And yeah, it feels good to kind of just let go and allow the growth. Because there's always a part of me holding back, I think, always a part of me going, well, I'll grow there, well, I'll grow that bit. But now it feels much more, totally exposed, totally open. Yeah, let's do this thing.
Which is what they mean by being vulnerable. It's like, okay, are you willing to put it all on the line and really let go? Or are you trying to control it and manage your spiritual growth, which is the ego's program. Okay, well, I'll do a little bit there, and I'll manage this carefully, and a little bit there, and this is the core, just to go, okay, let it all go. Really, like, go for this. And that means like fully let go, and just say, okay, I don't know. Fully letting go, say, I don't know anymore. I don't know. I don't know how to live my life. I don't know how to do this. So show me. Show me moment by moment. It's like a radical openness to the present moment, to the guidance that can arise. And that's living totally in the now. Okay, what's arising now? I'm guided moment by moment. There's no preconceptions. There's no judgments. There's none of the past conditioned patterns guiding me. It's just, okay, show me. I think that's what she's calling us to do. If we're exposed, we have the vulnerability. You can become exposed. So what are you doing? You're exposing the ego. Throw ourselves into the open, which is spacious awareness. Do it. Throw yourself and say, okay, I'm going to let go of all of the controls, all of the fears, because the ego tells you, well, if you do that, you could get hurt. This is unwise, and this could hurt you, and so keep some control here. Keep this under fairly tight control. And so it can tolerate, some kind of personal growth. Okay, well, you're going to improve yourself, and usually with an outcome in mind. But to completely let go of the self and say, okay, I'm just letting that all go. I don't know anymore. I'm not guiding the ship anymore. And that's very scary for the ego. But the spirit is liberated. You go, oh wow, that just feels so good. That's free. And that's what we all yearn for.
Today's inspirational quote by inspirational American author Joy Bell C is a call to open yourself up to the higher learning that is only possible when you expose your ego or separate self-concept by bringing it into your conscious awareness, letting go of its fears and inhibitions, and throwing yourself into the open expansiveness of truth. So she's really asking you to do two things. Let go of your belief in separation and open your mind to the pure formless awareness of perfect love.
Okay.
Yeah,
any thoughts on those two things?
That belief in separation, having a tool like EAM and kinesiology, I think, just clear on it, just keep clearing on it. I'll get through this really quickly and easily, but no, it's a bugger. It's like so deep and so much of it that I'll keep clearing on it and it's still there. But that's okay.
It's very deep-seated.
Yeah, very, very. It's like I thought I could access anything, but that is far deeper. But then, so be it. That's the journey, isn't it? And I think I've said before, to do it gradually anyway is more enjoyable because you learn as you go. If you just like suddenly let go of the belief in separation, what would you learn from it?
Yeah, well, it can be quite dramatic and radical. You don't. Someone like Eckhart Tolle, his life basically fell apart. He just went, I don't really need to do anything anymore, and he kind of slowly reintegrated. But it wasn't a sort of just reinterpreting his perceptions, and he just went, well, why, I'm really not interested in doing anything. And so he just sat on park benches and didn't really work. And so that has its, totally letting go it has its challenges as well. So this is saying be willing to do it, but understand that it's a process. You're willing, and you keep being willing to do it. And so little by little, when you get the opportunities, you throw yourself into the open, you let go, you're vulnerable, and that is going to systematically and progressively undo the ego as you do this process of letting go. And that's for most people, that's going to be the journey. It's not just going to happen overnight like it did for Eckhart or some other people. It's a slow progression, and it's daily choices. That yes, I'm choosing to let go of my belief in separation. Does that mean that it's totally gone if I let it go in this instance? Maybe not. Maybe there's still some resident belief there, but all I can do is let it go in whatever situation's arising for me now, as best I can.
I've just realized I've got a fear of fully letting go of the belief in separation. A friend of mine, he had an experience a few years ago where he just lost all separation. He didn't have any, he has no boundaries. He just sees himself in the oneness. And he was unable to speak properly for a few years because there was no need to speak, and his whole life, just stopped. And he's only now reintegrating several years later, trying to operate. He's in the oneness, and then he's trying to reintegrate into human life. So I can see, I've got a fear of that happening. So that's probably why I'm holding myself back a bit.
Yeah, it's on the level of form. These are opposite realities, and if you go totally into oneness, there's no need to really do anything. It's like I'm totally contented in that state. So often then the physical life of the human just falls away, really, and the person just, there's nothing to do, there's nothing to say. But I think you've got to trust this, that you'll be guided, and it's for most people it's a slow progression, and you progress, and you're letting go some more, and you integrate your insights, and you're able to actually operate quite effectively in the world. You function in the world, you're effective, you're in flow, but not attached to any of it. And that's really what he's trying to train us to do. That's why it's called A Course in Miracles and not A Course in Revelation. He's saying it's about being effective, being miracle-minded in the world, and being able to function in the world, but all the time that it's not really real, and that there's no real attachment to the experiences. The experiences come and they go, they arise, they pass away, and you're able to observe them all, you're able to participate in life, but without making it terribly important or real. And so it has a sort of light quality. And this pure formless awareness of perfect love is streaming through and informing all of your thoughts and emotions and sense perceptions. And that's the enlightened state, where you can actually be very effective in doing without attachment to doing. So what's inspiring you to do is the presence, is this awareness. And it says, do this, go there, say that. And you don't really know why. It's just moment by moment, you kind of downloading, saying, well, what should I do now? That's the kind of radical openness to the spirit that this quote is pointing to. Okay, what should I do now? I don't know, but hey, I'll get the guidance moment by moment. And then something comes in, you get an idea, you feel an inspiration, and then, okay, well, I'll do that then. And so it's learning to get very, very discerning, just to be able to tap into that frequency and be guided continuously. And that's why we do the mind training, to like, well, can I listen to that continuously, or do I still have my own ideas coming in? Quite a lot. Right. For most people, their own ideas are going to be coming in quite a lot to start with, and then gradually it's a process of letting those go and just tapping in, saying, okay, well, let me be guided then. You tell me. And you're not fooled anymore. Your own idea comes in, you go, oh no, that just doesn't quite feel right. It's got a different quality, a different feeling from something that's downloaded. And you start to discern the difference. Say, okay, well, that is from the spirit that feels like a genuine guidance. And then that's kind of my ego coming in and telling me what to do based on some kind of past conditioning. And it's very subtle, but this is the discernment that this mind training is training you to develop. Oh, okay, so you can determine the difference. Which is which, and that process may take years, many years, to really get that clear, because it's experiential, isn't it? No one can say, oh, this is okay, so here let's do a course in listening to the Holy Spirit versus the ego. So exactly what does it feel like? And because it's a feeling, and everyone's gonna have some somewhat different feelings. We all interpret it differently. So you got to figure it out for yourself. There's some general principles you can learn from others' experiences for sure, but how it feels for you is going to be probably different from anyone else. It's not exactly the same. So you got to determine that, and that's your own hero's journey to learn. Okay, so what's the true voice? What's true self speaking, and what's false?
Okay.
And carry on. These two steps.
These two steps are both essential to the awakening process, because without the first, the ego remains in charge of your mind and life. And without the second, you'll have no positive replacement for the ego, which will then feel even more resistant to letting go, because it fears losing its self-created identity, in which it misperceives to be an abyss or void or non-existence. Yeah, sometimes when I talk to people go, if I let go of all this, there'll be nothing. And I'm like, yes, nothing. And they're going like, no, nothing, difficult point.
But it's no thing. It's no thing.
No thing.
It's no form.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean there's nothing there. In fact, if true reality is pure formless awareness, it means that no thingness opens you up to what is true and real, the pure formless awareness of perfect love, as we call it. So the ego is going to misperceive that and feel fearful, because it's saying that form is reality. And this sort of void or abyss is non-existence, but it's non-existence for it. It's not non-existence for the spirit. You don't cease to have awareness when the ego's dropped away, which is why you can let it go. There's an awareness beyond it. So what Yeshua is doing here, quite cleverly, the Buddha basically had this doctrine of no self. But Yeshua is giving us the doctrine of, okay, you have a true self, which he calls Christ, or your true self, which is the idea that you are one. You are one self, and everyone is one with you. And so that one self unites you with everyone. You see everyone. If you see everyone as the same self, then it brings into your mind the pure formless awareness of perfect love more and more. And so it's kind of an operating system that can help us to live here, have some kind of identity, the Christ identity, and live actually quite functionally and effectively in the dream, while we forgiving or letting go of all of our attachments to this world that give our separate self or ego seeming existence in our mind. And we progressively and systematically restore our minds to the state of pure formless awareness, or what he calls the kingdom of heaven. So it's an operating system that I think is helpful, more helpful than the Buddhist doctrine of no self, because that, for most Westerners, that's going to freak them out. They're going to go, no self, that's too much to accept. It's the void, it's the abyss, and they get scared and then they run away. And actually what could have revealed itself to them if they went on this process doesn't. But the idea that there's a true self, Christ, or you could call it your Buddha nature, sort of puts a positive, there's a positive replacement for the ego now. So it's not a void. There's an identity there, but it's the truth. That's ultimately going to restore you to the one to oneness, to the experience of pure formless awareness of perfect love. So, which would be the same as the Buddhist outcome would be, for using another methodology, there's no self, therefore don't attach to anything. You'll get to the same outcome. Buddha called it nirvana, as opposed to the kingdom of heaven, but it's a state of pure formless awareness. So there's different ways of getting to the same outcome, but the Buddhist doctrine of no self, I know I've spoken to people, and very few people can wrap their head around that. Even established Buddhists, it's like too much. It's like the formless, the formlessness of it, the void, it becomes quite scary. And so if something increases your fear, it's not necessarily a helpful concept. So Yeshua takes a different approach and says, okay, well, let's call it the one self, or the true self. And in the end, you'll get to a state of no self. In heaven, there's no Christ. There's no true self. There's just pure formless awareness of perfect love, just that awareness. But while we're here, this is a very useful operating system to help us to live functionally and effectively in a miracle-minded way, in a happy dream, while we learn our lessons. And it can help us to learn our lessons, because while we're here, there's still some kind of perception going on. So someone that's now perceiving for you. And then you have Christ's vision, or Christ's perception, which is the Holy Spirit's reinterpretation of the dream. So it's actually an operating system, this Holy Trinity, Father or Source, Son or extension, and Holy Spirit, or remembrance of Source, remembrance of oneness, remembrance of love, whatever you want to call it. Here's an operating system. It's how you can actually functionally live in this world in a way that's functional and effective, and you can be happy and peaceful while returning your mind to pure formless awareness systematically and progressively. But as I say, it's unlikely this was ever taught to you in Sunday school, because traditional Christianity doesn't understand the Holy Trinity. They go, it's a mystery, we don't know, just accept it on faith. That's what they do if they don't understand something. Well, that's not good enough for if we're on a path like A Course in Miracles, which is all about inquiring and understanding. Really understanding what's going on in the mind. And it's not actually that complex. It's actually pretty simple when you break it down and you look at the operating system. Like, okay, well, that makes sense. But you have to let go of dogma, the dogma that there's only one self, one Christ. You see, I think this is probably what got in the way. There's only one Son of God. That this was the distortion in the Christian teaching. Okay, well, how does that work then? If you are the extension of Source, the Holy Spirit, you are the Christ as well, and the Holy Spirit is your corrected perception, then it kind of does away and go, well, I'm the Christ. That's what the Holy Spirit, the Holy Trinity is saying. You are the self. You are the Christ. There's not just one Christ. His name wasn't Jesus or Yeshua. We're all that. And so the reason they can't accept what the Holy Trinity really is, it goes against the doctrine that's been passed down over 2,000 years, the false doctrine that there's only one Son of God. Well, how can that be if the Holy Trinity is for everyone? See, so because there's a falsity in it, they then have to deny the truth, and then they resort to mysteries to try and explain it, instead of say, well, maybe our doctrine is false and we just need to see that, let it go, and then this is all very explainable. There's no contradictions there. So I decided to put the diagram together, actually, because I've been promising to do that. So I was like, okay, well, let's just do this. So it's really an operating system for your life. You've got God or Father or heaven, love, oneness, eternity, pure formless awareness, perfect love, source, knowledge, many names for it. There could be probably half a dozen other names around outer space. So any one of those names is a pointer to this awareness. It's an awareness. That's what it is. That transcends the world. It transcends time and space. So that's God. That's at the top of the tree. That's the Father in the traditional Christian language, Father. And then you have this true self or Christ, or if you want to use Eastern terms, the Buddha, your Buddha nature. In Hinduism, they call it the Atman. It's like your soul that's the expression of God. So the self, basically, that expresses the life essence, the life principle of the universe, i.e. the Christ, same thing. So Atman, Christ, Buddha, true self, whatever term works for you, because the terms are just pointing you to the same thing, to a true self. That's still conceptual. So Yeshua says, well, Christ will disappear eventually into God. There will be no kind of separate awareness of a Christ self when you're in heaven. It's just the pure formless awareness of perfect love. That's all. It's just pure awareness. But while we're here, that concept can be quite helpful because it replaces the ego's false self concept. And so we don't feel like we're going into the void, into the abyss. There's actually something quite positive and constructive about this. Okay, well, I can accept, that there is a true self that believes only in oneness, and that's my Christ nature, my Christ identity, and that helps me to live this oneness in this world by perceiving differently. So who's perceiving then is the question. In no self, the doctrine of no self, well, who would be perceiving then? It doesn't really allow for perception, does it? There's no self, so who's perceiving then? Who's interpreting? Do you see the problem with that? It tries to go from here, physical universe of time and space and all the circumstances and events in it, and it tries to go, well, there's no self, so we just go whoop straight there into formless awareness, no self, without an intermediate step, which is what the Christ is, the conception of the true self. So it's like the bridge. You have Christ and you have Christ's vision, which is perception. So it allows for the correction of perception systematically and progressively in this world as part of this awakening to who you really are, the true self. And the more identified you are with the true self, the more you're going to be in communication with your source. Because this presence, awareness, pure formless awareness, whatever you call it, will now start to arise more and more in your mind as you identify more and more with one self. And you don't continuously fragment yourself and see that you are some kind of separate self and other people are separate. And so now you're communicating with this pure formless awareness of perfect love. That's kind of streaming into your awareness. That's the communication between the Father or Source and the Son or its extension. And that's facilitated more and more by you identifying with the Christ self and then operating that system in the world by perceiving correctly. So those are your true perceptions, also called Christ's vision, also called miracles or whole awareness in our language, through forgiveness or through letting go or through surrender. That's another name for this process. The throw yourself. Okay, so you're letting go, you're surrendering in this process. And so what I love about this system is it allows for a slow transition of more and more changing of your mind, changing of your perceptions, correcting your perceptions, and then this true self arises more and more, and you start to believe it more, and you start to know, okay, yes, there is a self, there is a presence here. And you call that the Christ. And then as you experience that more and more, you feel this awareness, pure formless awareness arising more and more. You can have times where you drop just drop into that, and it's just a pure experience in meditation. But at other times, when you're more active in the world, this Christ self is now the construct in your mind, still a concept, but it's the highest self-concept possible that replaces the self-concept of the ego without totally freaking you out and without making it unreachable. I think the problem with no self is it's too unreachable for people. From a state of being identified with a separate self and perception in this world, and that's your reality, to suddenly go to no self is a big leap. And then people struggle with it. And if they don't understand the doctrine, then they throw it out, or it's kind of there, but they don't really accept it, and they're not really living it, which is I think the case with a lot of Buddhists. Maybe they've come across the doctrine of no self, but they don't actually practice it and live it. Because how do you do that practically? How do you live as no self in a world that sees you as a self? That almost demands that you have some kind of identity, and that you operate in this in some way. So I think it's maybe just a bridge too far, certainly for the Western mind. And remember, the system that he's training us in is designed for the Western mind. He's given it in New York City, which is the epitome of a Western city and society, to people in the modern age to help them where they are, understanding where they are, understanding the Western mindset. And he hasn't used the doctrine of no self for a good reason, because it would probably turn a lot of people off the teaching, even though that's eventually where you go. In the interim, this is just quite helpful, this true self concept. Okay, and then the third level, so that's the red block. You get everything in time and space, so people, things, places, events, circumstances, situations, all of your traumas, your successes, failures, and everything else that seems to exist and happen. So anything in the matrix, anything in perception is part of this experience. And now you can look on all of that from the perspective of the Christ, or the true self, with Christ's vision or corrected perception, whatever you want to call it, which just removes all of the difficulties, removes the challenges, the difficulties, the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, and allows love to stream through. So ultimately, when you've mastered this thought system, the pure formless awareness of perfect love is streaming through from your source, and it's coming through some kind of a self-concept, which is the operating vehicle for you in this world, and streaming through into your perceptions, all of your perceptions. And of course, the more you do this, the more you reinforce this operating system, the more likely you are to be able to do it. The pathways get strengthened, and you find that you're living your life on purpose. There's more flow, and that's okay temporarily. You don't need to go just into this. You can actually find happiness and joy here temporarily anyway, for the rest of your life. Inspired action is just working the system, saying, okay, well, I am this. Let me remember it in all of my thoughts and words and actions, all of my sense perceptions of this world. So it's actually quite, the Holy Trinity becomes a very practical device in your life that can really help you to operate in this world while awakening from the world. Be in the world, but not of the world, as Yeshua said. Okay, so any comments, questions?
No, it just
makes
me more aware that my friend Mark he just jumped from the red box to the top one at the top, and he didn't have the middle box to kind of ease him through it, so it was a bit of a shock to his system.
No.
But yeah, I can see the benefit of the middle ground.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that obviously that was his experience, and it can happen. But Yeshua is saying, look, much better to do a slow, progressive process than go there. He even says at some point, if you were hurled into, don't fear that you'll be suddenly hurled into this, because the experience might be more traumatic and beatific if you're not ready for it. So he's getting us ready. He's preparing our minds through all of this mind training work that's really working with our sense perceptions, working with our perception of this world, to correct our mind, to grow our awareness of this, so this becomes stronger, and we start perceiving more consistently in this way. And that starts correcting and healing the mind to prepare us for this kind of direct communication with Source, which starts to happen more and more. And eventually there'll be a merging. When she says God takes the final step, when you're ready, you just kind of merge into that experience, and the true self and the Christ and all of these concepts just kind of disappear. It says, Christ in heaven, all these concepts disappear. It collapses into oneness. There is no true self as such. There's no Holy Spirit necessary, because you don't have to reinterpret anything. But the Christ vision is very important in this world to help us to transcend it. Otherwise, you could get stuck in, like your friend did. It sounds like it wasn't particularly balanced, and if he'd been on some kind of program like this, it might have managed that awakening much better. He might have saved himself a lot of time as well. But I guess that was his experience. Any other thoughts on that?
No, that's all.
Okay, so here we are. We just discussed that, explaining it. It's useful to understand this, because it's pretty fundamental to the entire course, knowing how this Holy Trinity works and how this operating system works, and accepting it, going, okay, I see what he's trying to do here. I see the logic, it makes sense, and I accept this. There's other ways for sure. You could take a Buddhist approach and go the no self route, or personal growth route. There are other ways of doing it, but I think if you're going to use Yeshua's way, you've got to embrace this and say, yes, okay, this is the way. I need to do this because something in me just feels right about it. So there it is. We'll send it out as a Word document probably tomorrow, or a PDF, maybe later. So you can refer to it. These diagrams are just helpful. They're like, okay, so just remember like what's actually going on, and it's a return to the framework of the teaching. And in a simple diagram, you can look at it and you can get it in a way that maybe a paragraph or two of text wouldn't do, because it's visual. We all know images are powerful. Okay, so happy with that. Any further thoughts on the Holy Trinity? Make sense?
Yeah. I saved the picture on my, I downloaded the picture and saved it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so you've got it as a resource. You can pull this stuff up and remind yourself, okay, so, the question would be, well, how do I perceive something? Well, how would the Christ perceive it? How would Yeshua or the Buddha, as an example of someone who's in that state, perceive it? And so the Christ self helps you to still engage in this world through your sense perceptions. Otherwise, you go, well, what's the point? This awareness doesn't actually perceive anything, because it's beyond it all. So we're working with perception and the Holy Spirit, which is the correction of perception, and the Christ, which is the true self, to help us ultimately to go back here And they're temporary expedients to facilitate that process. Okay, so that brings us to the lesson. Let's just bring up today's lesson. So I'm not a body, I'm free again. Do you want to read that slide?
I'm not a body, I'm free, for I'm still as God or perfect love created or extended me. All things are lessons God would have me learn. I like how you changed this. I'm really glad you changed it because, yeah, all things didn't work for me. So the alternative is
a bit clumsy, all things, yeah.
Well, then that's like so material, isn't it? Things.
Because it's kind of implying a thing senses everything in the illusion of time and space.
Alternatively, there are lessons in all situations that perfect love helps me learn. Yeah, I like that.
So I can learn from everything, which is how we should perceive our lives. This is a journey. We're on the hero's journey. Everything, no matter how apparently bad it is and difficult the experience, there's something for me to learn here. In fact, the more challenging it is, the more there is for you to learn. So it's a reminder. Okay, it's all about learning. Just another way of framing any experience.
Yeah,
I'm not a body, I'm free.
It's a way of life, isn't it? Taking life as a school, as a lesson. And the more you practice it, the more you see the opportunities there are in it. And it is definitely a practice, isn't it? To know that every single thing is a lesson.
Just to get good at recognizing that and going, okay, so what's the lesson here? What's there to learn here? How can I learn from this? And that's why, the end of day reflection, I don't know if you do that, but like ask those questions. What can I learn from this? What happened today? What can I learn from the experience? And how does that help me? How does that serve me? Because if you do that, you're like, okay, I'm learning all the time. And I'm not just mindlessly going through life experiencing stuff and not learning lessons, which is what so many people do. I'm consciously, learning from my experiences and going, okay, what was the reason for that experience? And that just requires some awareness and reflection. And then you accelerate your learning journey hugely. So, okay, so I'm learning the lessons all the time, quickly. I don't have to go for years and years just stuck in the same pattern. I'm learning every day. I'm shifting every day by degrees. And that's actually an inspiring way to live. You're growing. Learning is growth. You feel like you're growing. You feel like there's a destination that you're going to that's worthwhile. You're enjoying the process, and it allows you to frame all of the difficult experiences that you're inevitably going to have in a way that you can manage them. You can cope with them. Okay, well, what can I learn from this? As soon as you go, well, why is this happening to me? You stop the learning. If you get stuck on the question, of course, if you go, well, why is this happening to me? Okay, what can I learn from this? It's happening to me because there's something to learn here. You see, this is the narrative. We need to get good at telling ourselves, okay, this seems to be challenging, but why is it really happening? What can I learn from this? And then you go and you look at the situation with the Christ vision, the Holy Spirit as perception, and it'll show you. If you ask, it'll show you what the correct interpretation of it is. And that, okay, maybe there's some adjustment. I need to change myself. There's a readjustment that needs to go on. And then you make it, okay, well, I'm not attached to the separate self. I'm called to let go of something. So, okay, I'll do that. I'll let it go, throw myself open, in the words of today's quote, and allow this transformative energy to come in and work through me. Okay, so then we've got, just click on that.
what I
I
tend to
think,
don't wait for the big lessons to do the little ones. And I think there's great learning in the little things. I remember once I
hmm,
did work on, there was like one flower in a whole vase that was dying, and it jarred against me. And so I did some work on it, and it was like, oh, such a revelation, all about resurrection and death and all that. And and then from that, I've like, there can be a mark on the wall, there can be a bit of dirt on the floor, and there'll be something to learn from it, rather than just,
hmm,
oh God, I've got to get the Hoover out again or whatever. Um, and
hmm,
I find that it's the little things that are really, really beneficial to work with. And then I don't seem to get the big things kind of pile up.
hmm. Yeah, I mean that's the way. It's the I call it the way of mastery, is to systematically and progressively do it, and just allow these lessons to unfold for you in your daily life, and then you don't have to have major traumas. If you're learning consciously, you're learning from a flower dying, and you really learn a profound lesson there, then maybe you don't have to have a human being dying in your life to learn that lesson. You learned it from a flower, because you can learn the lessons from anywhere. But it's the idea of living mindfully. The whole mindfulness movement is awareness, really. Living with awareness, living with a higher awareness that there's some kind of deeper meaning and purpose to everything. That's what this lesson is really saying. Um, these are lessons God would have me learn. So the pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is my true awareness, is asking me, encouraging me, inspiring me, shall we say, to learn this, because as I learn this, I get more and more of that awareness. I'm connected more and more to it. So it's not like, well, God would have you learn this lesson because he's some kind of taskmaster who's instructing you to do it, and if you don't do it, you're going to get into trouble, which is how often religions interpret this. It's saying, no, this awareness is inspiring you to learn these lessons because it wants to arise more and more in your mind. And as you learn your lessons, it will arise more and more in your mind. Because learning your lessons is to let go of the ego that blocks the pure formless awareness of perfect love. So there are lessons in all situations that perfect love helps me learn. Just reminding yourself of that is very powerful. If you just in any situation, if you reminded yourself of that, then you become bulletproof, invulnerable. So okay, there's a lesson here to learn. That's all. I'm not upset, angry, none of those emotions. There's a lesson here to learn. What's there to learn? And if you're honest and you open, then the Holy Spirit will tell you what there is to learn. It will reveal it to you. It's okay, well, that's what there is to learn. And so those are gentle lessons. He talks about, you can learn gentle lessons through the Holy Spirit. It can be very kind and gentle, this process. It doesn't have to be harsh and, your life just deconstructs and there's all kinds of drama. And it doesn't have to be that way. Gentle lessons, kindly learned. So the hero's journey can be, this sort of gentle journey of awakening. You're still going to get challenged, but it's like if you're doing it systematically and progressively in your daily life, then those challenges don't necessarily need to be extreme. It can be, more moderate lessons arise. So any thoughts on that?
You mentioned The Way of Mastery that sits on my shelf unread. But it's the title, isn't it, that teaches me really. And so my business is really called The Peaceful Way, and it's much the same. It's that way of just picking up on those small things, those little moments. Interesting. I think there's
Just
I teach it. That's what I teach my students, and they're pretty good at it. They learn really well. And then they teach me because they're like picking up on small things, and then it reminds me to keep doing it. So we're all
Hmm.
together. When people around you are doing it, it's very helpful, isn't it?
Oh, exactly. So you're always teaching yourself is the
Yeah,
truth of the matter.
yeah.
Yeah. Which is why teaching, is a good idea. So you're teaching yourself so that you can learn these lessons faster. You recognize that teaching and learning is your function here.
Yeah.
And in order to be a good teacher, you have to be a good learner. The two go hand in hand. You can't really teach if you're a poor learner because they're two sides of the same coin.
Mm.
Okay, so you want to read the few sentences there, read the original and then the translation.
A lesson is a miracle which God offers to me in place of thoughts I made that hurt me. What I learn of Him becomes the way I am set free. And so I choose to learn His lessons and forget my own. Alternatively, a lesson is a miracle which pure formless awareness of perfect love offers to me in place of thoughts I made that hurt me. What I learn from it becomes the way I am set free. And so I choose to learn its lessons and forget my own. Yeah.
So a lesson is a miracle actually. Spotted something. Let's just change that. 213. A lesson is a correction. Miracle is a lesson is a correction. Which pure formless awareness of perfect love offers to me. So it's a correction in my perception. That's all a lesson is. In place of thoughts I made that hurt me. So I'm letting go of something that's hurting me, correcting my perception. When I learn from it, pure formless awareness of perfect love becomes the way I am set free. So I'm set free into this state, into this pure formless awareness of perfect love. When I let go of my misperceptions. And so I choose to learn its lessons and forget my own. So same thing, just restate it over and over again. He's saying the same thing, and he uses different language because this particular lesson might really work for someone. They might go, oh, okay, all lessons, I get it. Everything's a lesson for me to learn. Now, some of us will go, well, yes, of course we know that. But for someone, this might be a revelation.
Mm.
Oh, everything's a lesson. That totally helps me to see my life differently or this particular challenge differently. And then even if you do know it in principle, it's very easy to forget it. Oh, okay, so this is just another lesson. Oh, okay, so I was getting a bit stressed about it and kind of going, why is this happening? Oh, okay, it's just another lesson. Remember, remember the truth. Simple truth, which is why he keeps reminding us over and over and over again in these workbook lessons of these simple truths because we forget them. The ego hijacks it, gets very complex. We forget the simple truth, and we down the rabbit hole, and everything's very complex and very dark, and we can't find our way out. And it's like, okay, we'll come back to the simple truth. You only find the answer there, and that's what he's stating in these different ways. Genius, really. I mean, these lessons are incredible to have such clarity of thought and in so few words. It's like such short little pointers, and yet each pointer is so effective to undo the ego mind. It's an extraordinary, I wouldn't say accomplishment, but it's extraordinary work. I guess he's a spiritual master, so he knows how to teach. It's like master teaching in these lessons. And then I'm not a body. I am free.
I'm not a
I'm
body.
still as God has created me.
Oh, sorry. Did you want me to say it or are you saying it?
Yeah, you read it. Yeah.
I'm not a body. I am free, for I'm still as God created me. I'm not a body, I am free, for I'm still as perfect love extended me. Yeah.
So anything else arising for you with that today?
Well, just from the missing the meal thing, just reminding myself I am love and that it can still keep coming through me and supply everything I need. I did get a sense in the middle of the night that something wanted to come through me and I wasn't letting it through, but I'm working on that. That my teeth were clenched together and I wasn't letting whatever it was to come through. But yeah, it'll work itself out. But yeah, I like the extended part. I think that's really helpful to know that it just takes away the separate self and it's just like it's an extension, which feels right.
Yeah, because I'm not really separate from my source. I'm an extension of my source. So whereas as God created me, sort of implies in the language that somehow you were a separate being that's been created from nothing. That's what the word created sort of meant. Okay, and there wasn't anything, now you come into being, but there was never a time. The truth is, there was never a time that you didn't exist. So there's no like, oh, you created suddenly and you didn't exist and now you exist. That's not how it works. You've always been. You've always been existent. So you've always been the extension of perfect love. You have a delusion that you separated from it, but that's not true. So you still, as you always were, as perfect love extended you. And that the word extension is just a device to connect you back to your source. Actually, in truth, you are the source and the source is you, and there's no separation at all. You're not even the extension of it. In heaven, there's no like, I'm the extension of this and there's something else that's seemingly separate from me. It's like it's one thing, it's one awareness. I am the pure formless awareness of perfect love, and it's all the same. But in our separated state, the word extension can help us to kind of bridge the gap. So what we're doing here, to go back to this diagram, this is the bridge. We need a bridge between these worlds. How do we reinterpret our world? And so we use words like extension, which seem to acknowledge separation, but then they move us to a state of greater unity. That's a good pointer, isn't it? Kind of in one word, it starts you there. It says, okay, well, there seems to be some kind of separation but it's an extension. It's not really a separate self. So that word extension kind of allows you to go back, doesn't it? I'm just the extension. It's extending all the way through in one line from the source through the one self or Christ into my perceptions. And there's a sense of, okay, this is one continuous process here. So now I follow that through the word extension. I can follow that train of thought all the way back to the source, just through one word. It's a pointer, which is, what a good pointer should do. A good pointer points you to the truth, and it helps you to undo the ego that's blocking that truth. So that's that's why we use the word extension back into your mind simultaneously. And that, for me today, that's just, okay, there we go. But, you've looked at the lesson for the last, 12 days? And that insight doesn't arise. It's so interesting how that works. So it's the reason he's giving you these simple phrases to say over and over again is because there's a depth to them. If you work with them every day, and you'll see a different angle every day. You'll see something different in that every day.
How many more days are there for the body one?
It's not going to be the same if you Sorry?
How many more have we got review days for the I'm Not a Body? Several more, aren't there?
Yes, it goes until lesson 220, so another 7.
Yeah.
Then we go into the second half of the workbook. 220 is where the first part stops.
Right.
Then it becomes, this is a kind of a precursor because it becomes quite short. The passages are very short. It's kind of sutra type format. So what we're going to start doing is doing the text in the day because the lesson is quite short and we can do it in one session rather than two. So let's see if we can do some text today. Yeah, I've got to leave at about 2:45 or so. So we've got another hour.
Okay.
So should we do a meditation
Yeah.
and then go into the text? Okay, so just making yourself comfortable, sitting feet shoulder width apart, back straight, cup your hands in your lap, close your eyes, and start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. So breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises and the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Clenching the sphincter muscle, feeling like this life energy is flowing up the spine into your heart center. And then drawing it up into the crown of your head. Just pausing at the top of the inhale. And just scan your mind and noticing any thoughts, any emotions, how that feels in the body. Usually emotion has a sensation, so observe. Breathe in again and just breathe in this awareness, spacious awareness, the underlying awareness. Allows you to just observe and witness whatever thoughts and emotions and sensations seem to be happening. Just observe it. Anything that doesn't feel spacious and empty and open, notice it and remind yourself that I'm not a body. I am free, for I am still as God created me, or perfect love extended me. Now let go with the help of your breath. So just letting go of anything that seems to contradict these words, the truth that you're not a body, body identification, attachment to form, attachment to things like food and things, people, places, events, circumstances, anything happening in this world. You can let go of your attachment to it. Just blow it all away with the breeze of your breath into the nothingness that it really is. Pull the lower stomach into the spine, expel the last remaining air out. And then just rest. In the stillness and the peace comes when you let go. You surrender everything, when you throw yourself into the open, as our quote today says. So do it now. Just let go of everything and be willing just to surrender to this deeper awareness of who you really are, which just reinterprets everything and you experience in this world and teaches you that all things are lessons. God would have you learn. Stated another way in alternative language, there are lessons in all situations that perfect love helps me learn. There are lessons in all situations that perfect love helps me to learn. So just breathing in and out through your nose. And it's the breath flowing in to the nostrils, and then the breath of its own accord just flows out, and you watch your breath happening to you, through you, and for you. So even in the breath, all things, the breath is a lesson you can learn. You can learn non-attachment. You can learn to let go of control. Do you need to control your breathing, or does it just happen? Can you just step back and observe it happening and allow it without interfering? So try that. Just observe the breath. Happening to you, through you, and for you. There's no attachment, no stressing, straining, and striving, just this awareness arising as you observe the breath. And in this awareness, you look on any situations in your life and learn the lesson, the one lesson that none of these situations really matter. Sink into this awareness. Pure formless awareness of perfect love that is the correction for any misperceptions. Yeshua says a lesson is a correction. Pure formless awareness of perfect love offers to me in place of thoughts I made that hurt me. What I learn from it becomes the way I am set free. And so I choose to learn its lessons and forget my own. What I learn from it becomes the way I am set free. Say that to yourself. Progressively, systematically, by learning your lessons, by letting go of your misperceptions, you are setting yourself free. And so, say to yourself, and so I choose to learn its lessons and forget my own. Your lessons are lessons of attachment. You're right. The mindset is right, and you're attached to being right. The separate self-concept wants to be right rather than happy. But you must forget your own lessons, because your own lessons are hardly happy. And in fact, they're teaching you nothing, teaching you that the ego is true and real, that separation is true and real, and you are separated from your source, and therefore all the negativity in your life is justified. Is that a lesson you really want to learn? You not rather want to forget that lesson and learn the lesson that only pure formless awareness of perfect love is true and real, and therefore love and peace and joy are justified always, and you have these enlightened states eternally. They exist for you. It's potentials in your mind, but you can actualize those potentials by letting go, learning your lessons, letting go of all ego thoughts that block this awareness, surrendering completely. So just practice doing this now. Let go and let God is another way of saying it. Let go and let this awareness, the pure formless awareness of perfect love, just arise in your mind, in your heart. Feel it in your heart. Breathe into your heart. Put one hand in your heart. That helps you to connect in with this heart presence. Drop into that. Observe the breath. So no mind, just pure awareness. Allow this pure formless awareness of perfect love to arise in your mind, in your being, your eyes, your body, and your mind. and then sink into it. Pure formless awareness of perfect love, which helps you learn your lessons. Immerse yourself in this awareness for a couple of minutes of deep silence. There's nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about for the next 2 minutes. Just breathe, observe the breath flowing in and out through your nose. Relax, be still, and experience perfect love, the pure formless awareness of perfect love that you are for the next 2 minutes of deep silence. And if any thoughts come up in this awareness, just wanting to let them go. Reminding yourself, I'm not a body, I am free. For I am still. I remain, and I am still in the stillness of pure formless awareness. I'm still as pure formless awareness extended me. And feel that presence extending through you, encompassing you, enveloping you completely. Give yourself over to it, surrender to it. Without hesitation, throw yourself, abandon all caution, throw yourself into it, into the abyss, the void of pure formless awareness. Experience the joy, the peace, the love that is there. So do that for the next minute or so of deep silence. And so just gently coming back from this deep state of awareness, bring some attention back to the body, to the breath and the sense perceptions and the world via all of that. And on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So 1, just breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises, the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Feel the energy rising up the spine as you clench your sphincter muscle into your heart center. Put one hand on your heart. Breathe in again. Feel the energy rising all the way up to the crown of your head. Pause there at the top of the inhale. Scan your mind again. Notice any thoughts, emotions, and sensations going on, particularly anything that feels negative, limiting, contracted, constricting in any way. And just be willing to let it go. Drop it to the nothingness it really is as you exhale. Imagine breathing it out. Dark cloud leaving you. So the air flows out. Chest and the stomach suck back in. Energy raised up into the crown of your head, subsides back down. Front channel of your body into your lower stomach and your groin. There's the weight of your body pressing down into the chair, feet touching the ground. Notice what you're feeling and touching. There's a subtle flow of air on your skin. Breathe that air in again. Notice any smell in your nose. Maybe there's a subtle taste in your mouth. Notice that and notice what you're hearing in the surrounding environment. In this detached way, so you're just able to observe whatever it is without judging it, labeling it, naming it. Just allow it to be in your perception. Notice how peaceful that perception is. Anchor this peaceful state in so you can stay in peace even while sense perceptions are going on. The underlying awareness is always there. So these mind training exercises are training you that you can stay rooted in the peace of God, as it's been called. It surpasses all understanding, while you're still in the world and sense perceptions are going on. And this peace of pure formless awareness will help you learn the lessons from sense perceptions that are there for you to learn. And so it is said, so it is done. And now on the count of 3, you open your eyes. Just take a minute to look around, observing thoughts in your mind. If it's just empty, notice how clear, light you feel with an empty mind. Notice what you're seeing, your visual sense, but don't interpret it. You're empty. You don't have to go straight back into thinking. Just your eyes rest on an object for a few seconds. And if you notice there's no judgment, then there's just an awareness there that's underlying the object. Move on, look at something else. Notice that same awareness is still there. It's unchanged. It hasn't changed because you're perceiving something else. So you're learning through these simple mind training exercises that there's only one awareness that underlies all perception, and it's always the same. It's a constant. Learning that awareness is the truth of who you are, the reality, and that seeming changes and vacillations in perception are therefore untrue by contrast. And that's how you take the journey from perception to knowledge, systematically and progressively training your mind, correcting your perceptions, which is why we do the mind training in these lessons and meditations. So that brings us to the end of this particular meditation, and we'll go into looking at the text now for the next 40 minutes or so. Okay, so let's have a look at the text. Let's get yourself set up there so that you're moving around. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. So how was that meditation?
I didn't want to come out of it. I wanted to stay there forever.
I'm going to stay there. Okay, that's good. Yeah, it can be difficult because if you go into the state of pure formless awareness, it's so nice. So why would you want to leave? It's really the answer. It's like, why would you, really? But you come back and you retain the elements of. So like, see where we escape. So retain the elements of that perception.
Yeah.
So let's see where we're. Section 1, chapter 26 we're on. Okay, so there we go. So this is a new chapter. It's called The Sacrifice of Oneness. So this chapter is The Sacrifice of Oneness, section 1, chapter 26. There's 8 paragraphs, so we'll see how we do in half an hour or so. So if you want to go straight, I've done a bit of translation, so just go straight into the alternative.
Okay. In the dynamics of attack, is sacrifice a key idea? It is the pivot upon which all compromise, all desperate attempts to strike a bargain, and all conflicts achieve a seeming balance. It is the symbol of the central theme that somebody must lose. Its focus on the body is apparent, for it is always an attempt to limit loss. The body is itself a sacrifice, a giving up of power in the name of saving just a little for yourself. To see a companion in another body separate from yours is the expression of a wish to perceive a little part of him and sacrifice the rest. Look at the world and you will perceive nothing attached to anything beyond itself. Look at the world and you will perceive nothing attached to anything beyond itself. All seeming entities can come a little nearer or go a little further off, but cannot join. I mean, there's a lot in that, isn't
there? Yeah. So any thoughts on that?
So many new thoughts. Yeah, I never thought about attack as sacrifice. Yeah, the striking a bargain, or the balance, all of it is like, whoa, every sentence is like, whoa.
Profound.
Yeah, really deep.
Somebody must lose. So here's the ego's thought system. Someone must lose and someone must gain. Because at the very core of it, we gained our identity by losing pure formless awareness of perfect love. So the ego's foundation rests on sacrifice. And so that thought system of sacrifice permeates its thought system. And so there's nothing that it does that doesn't entail someone losing. It's a win-lose. It's a win-lose mindset. It cannot tolerate win-win. Not everyone can win, because that means we're all the same if we're all winning. So why have we set up a world where there's winners and losers? Why do the games we play involve a winner and a loser? It's because the ego values winning and losing. And there's always then someone through. They can't tolerate everyone winning. So you think of these crazy competitions we set up. We're about to have football, the World Cup, another round of that in a month or two. So one nation, only ultimately one nation is going to win. So one team and one nation out of the whole world is going to feel like a winner, and everyone else is going to feel like a loser.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
agree with that.
this is so supposedly sanity.
Mm.
And this is the way it's set up. I mean, saying the body itself is a sacrifice, a giving up of power in the name of saving just a little for yourself. So we give up our true power to save some for ourselves, our separate self, and that is manifested in and through the body.
Mm.
And if you see a companion in another body separate from yours, this is the expression of a wish to perceive a little part of him and sacrifice the rest. So you actually want to see him separate and limited. You don't want to see him as the truth, as the one self. You
Mm.
perceive nothing attached to anything beyond itself. Everything's separate. Everything's just these separate entities kind of floating around, and nothing's really connected. It's a very disjointed way of perceiving the world, but that's the ego's perception. Everything's just kind of randomly separate. And so we move in constellations. Bodies move, seeming entities can come a little nearer, go a little further off, but cannot join.
Yeah, wow.
All seemingly separate entities. Change that. Seemingly separate entities can come a little nearer, they can go a little further off, but they cannot ever join. They are separate by definition. That's the ego's view.
Mm. Yeah, I never thought of the body as a sacrifice, but yeah, now it's said like that. Yeah, wow.
Well, we sacrifice pure formless awareness in order to have a sense of a separate identity, and the body is the manifestation of that separate self. So it relies on the sacrifice of oneness in order to exist. And so the ego's entire thought system is built on the idea of sacrifice. You go into our little course manual. You have a look at this. The descent into hell. That ego consciousness, belief in separation, relies on, is underpinned by the idea that you have sacrificed God, love, oneness, pure formless awareness. Because without the sacrifice of that, the ego cannot exist. So its thought system is built on the idea of sacrifice, and everything that it's created, such as the body and the relationships in bodies, which are special relationships, relies on the idea of sacrifice. This is what he's saying here. So it's deeply entrenched. Body implies sacrifice has taken place. So you wonder why you can never be happy perceiving yourself and others as a body. Well, that's why. There's always a sense of loss. And then people die in the body and you go, oh, now I've lost them. It's really a disastrous perception if you think about it. You're destined to lose. Everyone is going to die. So inevitably, you're going to feel a sense of loss.
So when I work with clients, quite often, loads sacrifice comes up, and I've not seen it in this idea. Yeah, well, it doesn't matter how I saw it, but didn't see it like this. But yeah, now I've seen it in black.
You'll find, Sally, if you do the text, oh my goodness, it's just like there's so much depth in the text that it just starts to reveal things. And each, as you've seen, each sentence is profound. It really reveals this whole thought system. And you go, oh my goodness, I really see what he's saying. And he's getting you to see the depth of it, like how deep this thought system goes. Now, sacrifice and the body are integrally linked. You cannot believe you're a body and not believe in sacrifice. Okay?
Okay, sort of okay.
You with that?
Mind blown, but don't worry about it. We'll carry on.
Okay, yeah, carry on in mind blown state. That's all good. The world you perceive.
The world you perceive is based on sacrifice of oneness. It is a picture of complete disunity and total lack of joining. Around each entity is built a wall so seeming solid that it looks as if what is inside can never reach without, and what is out can never reach and join, with what is locked away within the wall. Each part must sacrifice the other part to keep itself complete. For if they joined each other, each one would lose its own identity, and by the separation are their selves maintained. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So the wall is really the outside of the body, maybe, or the outside of the end. Yeah, it could be. I suppose there's no
Well,
definite.
it seems to be physical. We've built a wall around ourselves, which we, if we perceive the body as real, we perceive, well, that's the end of me, right? You know, where my body ends, that's the end of me, and then there's space, and then there's another self, and I seem to be separated from other people by space. And if you perceive only the body, then you know that's what you will believe.
But even people that work with energy, they see the aura and they see a separateness in that people's energy can affect other people's energy, and still separateness, just in an expanded way, isn't it?
Yeah, it's getting a little bit beyond. If you see that energy transcends the body, okay, there's an energy field that goes maybe several meters out from the body. That's a start of breaking down the barrier. Okay, I'm just a body, and you know, you're starting to see a little bit beyond, and the idea of separation is being undone to an extent. But if you still believe in energy and you have a separate aura, it's still the belief in separation. So remember, this is going beyond energy.
Yeah.
Energy implies change, energy implies shift, energy implies that something is changing in time. Energy implies that there's no longer pure formless awareness of perfect love only. There's now different things going on. And that's part of, you know, I'm an energy entity. Even if you say, well, I'm all energy, I have my energy and that's your energy.
Yeah.
Well, that's still separation. Actually, there's only one universal awareness that underlies it all, which is not energy. It's never changed. Energy is shifting and changing. Energy is a substance of the universe, so it's a substance of separation. It's what makes the separation tangible and real to us. The body's energy. Okay, but it's a projection of the mind. Remember, energy is just projected thought. So it's a projection of the mind outwards to make the idea of separation real. And that's the only purpose of the body and the universe of time and space it perceives, to make the idea of separation real in your mind. And then we see, you know, we've built a world where this seems to be reality. This kind of separation, and the body seems to be real, and we all have separate selves, and that's the default perception of the world. He's saying, but it's totally false. The world you perceive is based on the sacrifice of oneness. You can only perceive it if you sacrifice oneness. In other words, you deny oneness. You say, that's no longer true. I want to believe in separation instead. And then you invent a world based on that new idea. So this idea of separation relies on the sacrifice of oneness, which is why it doesn't work, because you can't sacrifice what is true and expect what remains to work.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. Okay. The little that the body fences off becomes the self, preserved through sacrifice of all the rest. The little that the body fences off becomes a separate self, preserved through sacrifice of all the rest. And all the rest must lose this little part, remaining incomplete to keep its own identity intact. In this perception of yourself, the body's loss would be a sacrifice indeed. The sight of bodies becomes the sign that sacrifice is limited, and something still remains for you alone. And for this little to belong to you are limits placed on everything outside, just as they are on everything you think is yours. For giving and receiving are the same, and to accept the limits of a body is to impose those limits on each companion whom you perceive. For you must perceive him as you perceive yourself. Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, millions. None that I could actually vocalize, but wow. This is what I teach, and still it's like mind-blowing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about the identity, isn't it? So as much as I say you are me and you're reflecting me back, and we're all in this together, we're all one, still there's so much depth to it, isn't there, that I still see a body, so it's still a limited perception, even though in my head I'm telling myself we're all one and you're just perception. I can still see it as separate. All the limits placed, all those limits. Yeah, because I'm only seeing such a small part of everyone. Yeah.
So it's so deeply, it's the default perception of the world. And he's saying, well, this is how separation works. Your default perception of yourself as a body and others as bodies is extremely limited, and it's based on the idea of separation. And this keeps your perception of yourself as a separate self intact. You must perceive this other people as you perceive yourself. You see them as separate, then you must be separate.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was only teaching that this morning. It's really humorous, isn't it? All right. Okay.
But you need to learn. Well, it's just ongoing, to remind yourself whenever you're seeing a body, you're not really seeing a body. This person isn't really separate from you. The whole thing's a gigantic illusion.
Yeah.
They're not really a separate self. While you're actually interacting and they're speaking to you and they're moving around. And it's mind correction par excellence when you can do that. And it's not easy. It requires the vigilance. Okay, there's not really a body here. We're not really seeing anything. So the body, the personality, the separate identity of that person, none of it is true. It's all a result of a loss of oneness. And if I perceive that as real, then I lose oneness too, and I lose touch with my true self.
Yeah.
Okay, number 4.
Just wondering how I'm going to sleep tonight, all this going around in my head. Blimey, I think I'll just print this out and just read it a few times. Yeah. The body is a loss and can be made to sacrifice. The body is a loss and can be made to sacrifice. What does that mean? Can be made to sacrifice? Or does it just mean you're using the body to sacrifice?
Yeah. So you can make it engage in sacrifice. And it was made through sacrifice. Can be made to sacrifice.
But can you see a body with the awareness that you're only seeing a part of somebody? And even though you're seeing the body, be aware of all the vastness, your actual perception of someone's not going to change, is it? Just your awareness.
Well, perception is awareness. The truth is they're not a body at all. It's not a part of them. They're not actually a body at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose that's the next step, isn't it? They're not a body.
What you're seeing is total illusion. You're seeing a projection of the mind into an illusory construct of time and space, and perceiving that as real. And none of it's really true at all. They're not a body at all. That identity, any belief that they're a body is false in your mind or their mind. Even though it's the default belief of the world, he's saying none of it's true. Because sacrifice isn't true. You can't really lose pure formless awareness of perfect love. So if you can't really lose that, how is it possible that a body can be real? and separation can be real.
So while you see other people as bodies, you're still holding the perception that you're a body. So you're in the illusion. So to be out of the illusion, you just wouldn't be seeing bodies. Is that what it is? You just
Well, you don't perceive them. You might still see with the body's eyes,
okay.
but you don't perceive it. You don't make it real. Perception is what you make real.
All right.
You don't really make them real as separate entities. You realize it's just this is a mind trick. You're living in a dream world.
Yeah.
And these people, these are figures in the dream world. They don't really exist. The only thing that does exist is that person's true awareness, which is the same as your awareness. That's the only reality that you see. That's the totally enlightened state, where there's no longer any sacrifice because you don't see any separation.
Mm.
So while you still perceive your companion as a body, he's saying, apart from you and separate in his cell, that's like a prison cell.
Yeah.
Separate in his, you are demanding sacrifice of him and you. Wow. So just our default perception is totally wrong. Default perception of the world, you're a body, totally wrong, and you're demanding sacrifice of everyone by doing that.
Okay.
So what greater sacrifice?
What greater sacrifice could be demanded than that pure formless awareness of perfect love's extension perceive himself without its source?
Without its source.
And its source be without its extension.
No, actually, we'll just change that. Without its self. There we go. Perceive itself without its source. So that's the sacrifice.
Right. Yeah. And its source be without its extension. Yet every sacrifice demands that they be separate and without the other. The memory of pure formless awareness of perfect love must be denied if any sacrifice is asked. I've moved it now. Is asked of anyone. Must be denied if any sacrifice is asked of anyone. What witness to the wholeness of pure formless awareness of perfect love's extension is perceived within a world of separate bodies, however much he witnesses to truth. However much he witnesses to truth. Let me read that again. What witness to the wholeness of perfect love's extension is perceived within a world of separate bodies, however much he witnesses to truth. Witnesses to truth? So I don't get that. So he's like, he knows the truth, but he's still witnessing the illusion.
So you can't really witness to both. What witness to the wholeness of perfect love's extension is perceived within a world of separate bodies, however much he witnesses to the truth.
Okay.
So we can't really reconcile these two worlds. He's invisible in such a world. And its song of union and of love be heard at all.
But are we not? We're kind of. I was going to say take the middle ground, and you'd say no, but that's where we're at, though, isn't it? We're in the middle of it, where we know that the body's an illusion, but we're also aware of what else is there that's invisible. So we are kind of in between the two, aren't we?
Yeah, it's a transition. That's why he calls this chapter's called the transition.
Oh, is that?
It's a transition from one to another. And so you vacillate, but in the end, he's taking us out of this world. He's saying you can't reconcile these. You can witness to the truth here while you're here, but in the end, you must let this world go entirely.
Okay, yeah. Sounds nice. Yet it is given him to make the world recede before its song, and sight of him replace the body's eyes. Recede before its song. When it says song, What does it mean?
So it's talking about the song of the source.
Okay.
It's like the voice. Another word would be the voice. It's the source that's speaking to us, and it's kind of singing the sweet song.
It kind of makes sense when it said it's song of union. I understood it in that phrase, but when we got to before it's song, it sounded a little bit different.
No. The sight of him replaced the body's eyes. So we sing the song of union. That's the song. And love be heard at all. Yet it is given him to make the world recede before its song. Yet it is given him. Yet it is. Yet he is asked. How about yet he is asked by the Spirit to make the world recede before its song, and have sight of him replace the body's eyes. So that needs some translation. Sight of. I think he's referring to his true self. Have the vision of his true self. That's Christ's vision. Place the body's eyes. So we're not seeing through the body anymore. We're seeing with our mind. We're seeing from this directed state of oneness.
I get that a lot more now. I think, again, I do a lot at night. I woke up in the night thinking it's all in the mind, it's all projection, or something like that came to me in the middle of the night. It kind of like, it wasn't a thought, it was just a knowing. It was more of an experience.
Yeah, and that's where it takes you. It just takes you beyond words, ultimately, into the experience of it. So the words are pointers to this experience, which in the end is ineffable. But we're using the words to help us to get to that experience.
Yeah. Okay. 5.
Number 5.
Those who would perceive the witnesses to truth instead of to illusion merely ask that they might perceive a purpose in the world that gives it sense and makes it meaningful. Without your special function, has this world no meaning for you? Yet it can become a treasure house of rich and limitless as the state of pure formless awareness itself. No instant passes here in which your companion's pure formless awareness cannot be perceived. To add a limitless supply to every meager scrap and tiny crumb of happiness that you allot yourself. Blimey. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Every meager scrap and tiny crumb of happiness that you allot yourself. So saying, yet this world can become a treasure house in which you express this pure formless awareness. It comes through you, and in every moment you can see that pure formless awareness is there. Your companion's pure formless awareness is there. They're not a body. You see only that. You see that awareness, which is the life essence in everyone and everything. And that's the limitless supply. So actually, if I see only the oneness, only that awareness, I have a limitless supply of happiness, rather than the tiny crumbs of happiness that you allot to yourself, which the ego, because it believes in sacrifice, doesn't allow very much of. So this perception of oneness will open the floodgates. This is the abundant life he talks about, coming from the corrected perception of who you really are.
Just made me think of somebody that's homeless on the streets, and you can perceive that they have nothing, but actually they have as much as everyone else, if they're in that place of knowing.
Sometimes they're more connected because they've let go of worldly attachments. That's why they're on the streets. And they can actually be freer than someone who's got all the trappings of success in their mind. It's why often they don't want to leave the street, because they're like, I'm free here and I don't want to go back into that that constraint. So although I don't have the comforts, I'd rather have the freedom. It's very, very common.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, number 6. You can lose sight of oneness, but cannot make sacrifice of its reality. You can lose sight of oneness, but you cannot sacrifice its reality.
That's easier, I'd say.
Nor can you lose what you would sacrifice, nor keep the remembrance of perfect love from its task of showing you that it has not been lost. Hear then the song your companion sings to you, and let the world recede, and take the rest of its witness offers on behalf of peace. And take the rest its witness offers on behalf of peace.
I think that's meant to be his.
Take the rest.
Song your companion sings, his. Yeah, it should be his.
His witness offers on behalf of peace. But judge him not, for you will hear no song of liberation for yourself, nor perceive what it is given him to witness to, what you may perceive it and rejoice with him. Oh, I lost me there. But do not judge him. Yeah. For you will hear no song of liberation from yourself, nor perceive what it is given him to witness to, nor perceive what it is given him. Now, can you just explain that? Nor perceive what it is.
So you won't hear the song of liberation for yourself, and you won't perceive what is given him to. So you won't perceive what is actually there for him as well as for you to perceive.
Yeah.
Nor perceive what it is, maybe instead, what he can witness. Nor perceive the truth that he can witness to.
That you may perceive it and rejoice with him.
So you may perceive it and rejoice with him.
Make not its pure, formless awareness a sacrifice to your belief in sin. You sacrifice your innocence and its, and die each time you perceive in him a sin deserving death.
You sacrifice your innocence with his. Sacrifice your innocence with his, and die each time you perceive in him a sin deserving death. So as you see him, if you see him condemned, you see him sinful, you see him guilty, your own innocence is sacrificed, and you perceive this thought system of sin and guilt and death, and your companions become the witness to that. But if you're willing to let those go, then do not make his, that should be his, do not make his holiness. So his pure formless awareness sacrificed to your belief in sin.
Yeah.
Don't sacrifice it for the belief in sin, in other words. Not.
If you sacrifice your innocence with his, yeah.
No, sacrifice his pure formless awareness to your belief in sin. That's really what he's. So just stating the same thing. It's just saying, look, it's two thought systems, two different ways of perceiving, and you will see what you choose to see. You want to see him as pure formless awareness, then you can, and you will activate your own pure formless awareness when you do that. You want to see him as sinful and guilty, then you must see yourself as sinful and guilty, and then you sacrifice pure formless awareness in your own mind. Okay, so I have to go now, unfortunately. We have 2 paragraphs, but I'll leave you to translate it. I'm gonna send this I'm going to send this to you. Save a copy. In fact, I'll just send it as I'll send it to you in Word format.
Okay.
And have a go at the rest of it.
Okay.
And peace. There we go. So where are we? Not letting go. And yeah, read it through again. There's some really good stuff here. This is chapter 1. There we go. Got to just close this. So let's close it. And then I can send it to you. Yeah.
Life-changing stuff.
It is. It's amazing. Yeah, really, really profound. So read the last two on your own, and I'll post this to the group. But you have it now. So.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much.
All right, it's a pleasure, Sally. So I see you. I see you tomorrow.
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. See
All
you.
right.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.